tomorrow night on Fox News. And Donald Trump is set to debate Joe Biden, with the moderator being Chris Wallace. Now, obviously, this is very important for both candidates, and because debates can have a huge impact, right? Debates can be a huge, huge part of the election. Just ask Michael Bloomberg.
Court threw out a Texas law that required abortion clinics to upgrade their facilities to hospital-like standards, and for clinic.
Sorry, we don't have that clip. But yeah, just ask, Michael Bloomberg, right? Bloomberg went from a leading candidate in the primaries. He was, a lot of people thought he would give Joe Biden a run for his money. And then after $1 billion spent on his campaign, he only won American Samoa. Which, man, that's just not a really good return on investment right there. And I was kind of shocked when I first saw this. And I will actually, if I can for a second, I will pull up the article for you. Because yeah, I mean, that's just $1 billion and you only win one state. Yep. That's a lot of money down the drain there. But the reason why I bring this up isn't just to make fun of Mike Bloomberg. It's a cautionary tale for Biden, right? So right now Biden is well funded, and he is just crushing Trump in fundraising. He's leading in polls all across the country. But this shows you that after a bad debate performance, some of that can all come crashing down. And Joe Biden is in a kind of precarious situation with this debate because his goal is to not lose, which can sometimes be hard to do, especially when your opponent has an interesting relationship with the facts. Now, honestly, I think Joe Biden will be fine. And people forget, he's a good debater, right? He stood his own against Sarah Palin when she was very popular. And that was kind of a hard thing back then because people were like, well, how are you going to attack Sarah Palin without, seeming sexist? Because she was a huge rising star, and a lot of people looked up to Sarah Palin until the wheels fell off. And Joe Biden debated her before the wheels fell off. And so it's like, okay, how do you go after Sarah Palin? But he was able to do that successfully, and a lot of people think he won that debate. More recently, he went toe-to-toe with Paul Ryan, who, again, was way more popular than good old Joe. And Joe wiped the floor with Paul Ryan. I mean, looking back on some of that debate, it's just like, man, he, Paul Ryan did not do so good there. Now, Joe Biden, honestly, he didn't look so good in the primaries when it was a ton of candidates on the stage. But when it was just him and Bernie Sanders, he did just fine. And so, for a lot of the Trump team, a lot of Trump supporters, they think, they hear Sleepy Joe, they hear all this stuff about Joe Biden. And I think they think that Joe Biden is just he's just gonna fall. He's just gonna fall apart in the debate. And I just, I don't see where people think that's gonna happen. If anything, this plays against Trump because he's painted Joe Biden for his supporters as such a moron, right? Such a low energy, imbecile. And so if Joe Biden actually walks on the stage and doesn't fall, trip and fall or something, okay, that's not. And if he actually looks competent, that doesn't look good. And so this brings us to the current president of the United States and what's at stake in the debate for him. Now, there's still time on the clock for the 2020 election, but it ain't looking good. Trump is losing in most national polls by 10% or 10 points. And you look at the battleground states, and the math just isn't there. He's losing in many of the battleground states. I mean, he's made up some ground in Florida, I believe, but in general, it looks like if the election were held today, Donald Trump would win or would lose. Donald Trump would lose the 2020 election. And so Trump needs a win in this debate, and he knows it, right? Trump, actually, it has been widely reported, wanted to add a fourth debate with Biden in early September, right? He wanted to do another debate with Joe Biden in addition to the three they're already having. And there's a couple things about this, right? If Trump thought that he was in such a good spot, then why would he want the other debate? You know? If he thought, okay, hey, I am going to destroy Joe Biden as he's been saying, why would he want another debate on the calendar? Unless he realized he's got some ground to move up. Also, speaking of the ground, Trump isn't exactly going to be on his own turf here, right? I mean, people have been talking about the need to live fact check him so he just won't make shit up. And Chris Wallace has shown that he is more than willing to do that.
But we have more tests by far than any country in the world.
But, sir, testing is up 37%.
Well, that's good.
I understand. Cases are up 194%. It isn't just that testing has gone up, it's that the virus has spread. The positivity rate has increased. The virus is worse than it was.
Many of those cases are young people that would heal in a day. They have the sniffles, and we put it down as a test.
The sniffles. Well, again, that clip just drives me crazy, right? I mean, obviously it's not, okay, yes, young people do better with the coronavirus than older people, but if you're spreading it, if those young people are spreading it, that's a problem. That's not good. But anyway, so Trump just saying his random bullshit like he normally does might not fly, even though this is on Fox News, because Chris Wallace is there. And, you know, I've watched Chris Wallace for a long time. I have not always been a fan, but he's definitely not been one to put up with Trump's bullshit. And so the thing Trump maybe has going for him is that you know, similar to Biden, is that a lot of people think he's an idiot or a moron. But sometimes, you know, when he's in front of a mainstream news audience, he knows how to come off to be, you know, a little bit more intelligent than he normally kind of seems, right? Like I watched his town hall recently, and he definitely had some issues there. He definitely had some problems, but by and large, I think people were watching thinking Trump was just gonna, you know, talk about injecting himself with disinfectant, and that's not what happened. And so I think for Trump's maybe thing here is if he can seem somewhat intelligent to people, maybe that's a possible win for him. I think he's going to appeal to folks who think, oh, maybe the mainstream news does say bad things about Trump. Maybe they're not being fully accurate. Trump has a possibility to maybe convince some of those people. And, you know, trust me, it is not lost on me that looking at this debate, and you're kind of looking at both candidates, and you have to include, okay, who's not going to seem the dumbest? Right? Like, okay, you know, is Joe Biden going to look dumb? Is Trump going to look dumb? Is Trump going to look smart? Is Joe Biden going to look smart? Like, that just seems to be a very bad place for where we are in deciding the next president of the United States. Right? I mean, we are, 330 million strong. Like, we claim to be, the best country in the history of the world. And now we're watching the debate for the leader of our country, and we're just trying to figure out, can the current president not say anything stupid for an hour and a half? And is Joe Biden going to say black people, aren't black if they don't vote for him again? That's not a great place to be. So my prediction for the whole thing, what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think Trump is going to come out strong. I think he's going to come out swinging hard because he knows he's got to win this thing. And he's going to attack Biden's family, namely Hunter Biden. Republicans have quietly been working in the Senate to try to dig up dirt on Hunter Biden and trying to allege, all kinds of crazy shit about him, stuff that I'm not going to repeat out on here. And that works in Republican circles, but honestly, I question attacking a guy's family after he buried his wife and his daughter, and then, about a decade or so later, buried his son. So he's buried several members of his family. And attacking his family, with that in mind, I don't think that's going to fly with a lot of mainstream America. I don't think people are going to react to that very well. And ultimately, this debate, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it'll be good to watch. I'm very excited to check it out. But I don't think it's going to move a whole lot of voters, right? Because the 2020 election is ultimately going to be about who voters feel, or what voters feel about the coronavirus, right? How they feel, and Trump's in a bad position here because he has been president when the coronavirus is happening. He's trying to blame Biden for things as if Biden was president. I saw a line of attack the Republicans are saying, has anyone looked at Biden's response to the crisis? And I'm like, what response? He's a private citizen. He can't do anything. He's worn a mask. He's been very good about mask wearing, so I'd say his response has been pretty good. But Trump, being in charge of this catastrophe that is the coronavirus and the American response to the coronavirus, that's not a good position to be in to ask voters, hey, how am I doing so far, right? And so Trump needs to change the perception of him and the coronavirus response. It has not been going well. People are starting to do back things. The economy is slowly starting to tick, but by and large, people are not just moving past the coronavirus. I'm an avid football fan. I love football. I'm a huge fan of football. I live in Austin, that is home to the University of Texas Longhorns. And they actually held their first in-person game, I believe it was last weekend. And it's been causing a lot of controversy in town because the Longhorns they announced that there are going to be 25,000 people in the stands. And that's right now I think in Austin they're limiting gatherings to over 100. So 25,000 seems a little not good. But when kickoff came, the game actually happened, the University of Texas only had about 15,000 fans in the stands. And I love football as much as the next guy, but I'm not putting my life at risk. And ESPN has actually looked at this. They've done polls, and they found that around 70 to 78% of fans said, I'm not good for going back into games until there's a vaccine or something like that. And so people are taking the coronavirus still pretty seriously. And so for Trump to win, he has to convince them that the coronavirus, that he did a great job there. And that seems like a very far leap, right? Trump needs to change the perceptions of him. And that's not going to happen overnight.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for watching Citizen Pete. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, click that little subscribe button, maybe the like button, and hey, maybe just leave a comment. I want to know what you're thinking. What do you think about all the politics and news and all the stuff that's going on in our country?